Hello, I think I've gone live. Let me copy this link. Still getting the hang of this YouTube Live stuff. Where is this video? Is a good question. Nobody's watching this yet. What is happening? I don't know why I'm having such a hard time finding the link to this video. Oh, is it right? Is it right here? Yes. Yes, it is. All right, let me see if I can get the chat now. There we go. All right, here we go. Hello, guys.
I don't know why.
Oh, no. I'm going back. Hello. Hi. Sorry, I had to find the chat. Let me pop it out now. I'm doing this on a different channel than I normally do things because I didn't want to bog down the actual show channel with all of this stuff. I'm going to tweet out this link now on my Twitter. And then I'm going to retweet that on the Bright Sessions Twitter, and then we'll get going. Thank you for joining. I am a little scatterbrained because I literally just pulled in from driving Liz and Felix of Wooden Overcoats fame to the airport because they were here visiting, which was awesome. But traffic to LAX was bad. Of course it was. So yes, I literally just got back. So thank you for bearing with me as I get my life together. Let me pull up all these questions that you guys asked and we'll get going. Alrighty. So many good questions. And then also if you see, I'll be looking at the chat. So put questions in the chat. Sorry, I'm a little scatterbrained. So Kujmos can't see me yet. I'm here and live. So if you guys can't see or hear me, let me know. But welcome, hello, welcome to my pretty dormant YouTube page that I had for a bunch of years in which I talked about fandoms and Tumblr. I'm just doing things on this channel because I like the show channel to be like official show stuff. And this is sort of a spontaneous thing to talk about the news that went out yesterday. That was only yesterday. Well, midnight, really, Tuesday. But yes, for those of you that don't know, I'm assuming you're tuning in because you listen to the Bright Sessions, which is the podcast that I make about people's supernatural abilities in therapy. And we're on hiatus right now. We had the first 8 episodes of our 4th season starting back in October. Oh gosh, I don't even remember at this point. And we're on a brief hiatus until March 7th. And then we come back with 8 more episodes. And as we announced yesterday, those 8 episodes will be the last of the series. And that is sort of a half truth because while the original run of the Bright Sessions is ending, we are doing 9 bonus episodes and 2 spin-offs that will involve a lot of the same characters, and those 2 spin-offs will take place after season 4. So yeah, the story's not really ending all that much. It's really just kind of realigning, I guess. And I can't tell you who's going to be in the first spinoff. I can tell you the second spinoff is about Caleb, but I can't tell you anything more about that because I want to keep things secret. And because the first spinoff that comes out next March 2019, spoils the whole end of this season with just the log line for that. So yes, exactly, our Poston. It's evolving because I am also writing books. I am just finishing up the first book right now. It's going to my editor soon, and that's super exciting. It's getting published with Tortine, which is awesome. So yeah, there's so much happening. I'm gonna now go into the questions that you guys asked me on Twitter because my brain is not working super great. So, okay, Mattia Romanzin asks, what's your biggest worry when it comes to moving platforms and ending the podcast story? Well, so we're not actually ending the podcast story, really, because the 2 spinoffs are going to be in podcast form. They'll be in the exact same feed as before, and everything's, you don't have to hit unsubscribe, you don't have to find a new feed. Everything's going to be in the exact same place that it always was. It's just going to be more limited run. So you know, that the first spinoff will be a certain number of episodes that will, once they're done, versus kind of the haphazard production and season schedule that we've had for the past 2.5 years. So yeah, the story's not moving out of the podcast realm all that much. Obviously the books are not the podcast. So the first book covers some of the ground that the podcast already covers and just does a deeper dive into those things and gives a little bit more perspective to a character who's in the podcast, but who we don't get as much of his side of the story in the podcast as we do in the book. So the first book is that. The second book is a Damien prequel, essentially. So that obviously won't cover, it might fill in some blanks in the podcast, but it's not going to, you know, carry through that story or anything. And then the third book actually takes place sort of concurrent with the podcast. So it's about Rose, and she's not a character that we've heard all that much from in the podcast. So with all the books, there is some crossover, obviously, with the podcast, and it's a lot of the same characters, but it is such a different thing because the medium is so different. So to your question of sort of moving into different mediums, the thing about the books that I really love is getting to really dive deep into the characters. Obviously, you know, our show, it takes place in therapy a lot of the time, and we are having these big emotional conversations, but there's something different to that than being actually like inside the character's head, you know, and really like going into their thought processes and you know, really diving into the sort of their inner workings. So yeah, it's fun because I definitely think that I'm not bored yet in terms of diving into these characters and telling the story and kind of exploring the different ways to tell the story too. It's really a lot of fun. R. Pawson asks, do you have a ballpark for how many episodes constitutes a limited run for TBD? I'm going to say TBD, but I'm thinking of it as sort of like a 10 to 13 episode type thing. That's kind of my plan. Our seasons for the Bright Sessions, the past couple seasons have run on a 16 episode with sort of 2 8-episode arcs. So kind of finding something between there where there's only 1 arc rather than 2, but it's a little bit more than 8 episodes. So I'll just say 10 probably is a good ballpark. Okay, let's do another question from the Twitter. Are there any actors that you would love to get into the Bright Sessions, and what sort of characters would they play? Yes, there are lots of actors. I've got, you know, a couple of my big, like, sort of dream celebrity guests of people who I really like, who I think would be good in voice acting or who are good at voice acting. But there's also a ton of friends that I have here and actors that I know here that I want to cast. And then also the other podcasters. I mean, yeah, I don't want to say any more about that because I think some of those podcasters might show up in the Bright Sessions in the future. So I'm going to keep that one close to the vest. Yeah. But yes, and in terms of what sort of characters they would play, I want to give people stuff that they haven't necessarily done before. Yeah, that's give somebody like the opposite of what they're sort of known for. I think that could be fun. Hi, Megan. What songs would I want in the TV show? I mean, that's so hard. That's so hard. I don't know. All of them. All of the songs. No, I do have a couple of sort of moments worked out in my brain of what if it was a visual medium of what songs I would want playing. But you know, that's always I think a question when it comes to TV is do you want a soundtrack or do you want a score or do you want a mix of both? And I think the tricky thing with the soundtrack model, Megan, leave me alone. The thing with the soundtrack model is that it dates things a lot. So yeah, I don't know. I sort of worry that some of my choices that I would want would then end up being, you know, 5 years from now, be kind of really cliche bad choices, or they're choices that would have been great like 8 years ago and wouldn't be great now. So yeah, I don't know. TBD. Oh, this is a good question from Twitter that's sort of similar. At Pluviosity, would the story change when the Bright Sessions became a TV series? Yes, if the show does actually get turned into a TV show, we're in the development process right now, which can take a long time, and which, you know, it's not, there are no guarantees. The story will change somewhat, because I think that, you know, the format of the podcast is such that it works really well in an audio medium, but a visual medium is very, very different. And that's true of the books as well, where, you know, there are sort of challenges that I've confronted in writing the books that, where I sort of think I want to tell a certain thing a certain way because I'm still in podcast brain, and then actually doesn't really work in book form. So I kind of have to rejigger things, and which is hard when it's stuff that deals with like canonical timeline stuff in the podcast, because I want to keep those things consistent. But yeah, so I mean, the story will change by the nature of the visual format just being so different. All the important things don't change, you know. So who the characters are, what their relationships are to each other, all that kind of stuff wouldn't change. The way things happen and how fast things happen might. And, you know, I sort of have an idea for the first couple of seasons and what those would look like if we did a TV show. And me and my co-writer Gab have talked about that. But as I've learned with the podcast, you get actors in the room, and sometimes things can change enormously based on how those actors act with each other. And I really like being able to kind of follow those things. So I definitely think of the TV show as its own adaptation of the show that maybe isn't like a strict, you know, copy of the show, but that has the same DNA and the same characters, and maybe could go a different place. Oh my goodness, this chat is moving fast. For the possible TV show, would you be consulting or have a role in it? So for the TV show, I would be co-executive producer. So I'd be, you know, in the writer's room and, you know, sort of making broad choices about the show. And I'm working with Gabrielle Stanton, who's an amazing writer, who'd be executive producing it. And I think we've been a really great team so far. We really get along. We really have the same vision for the show. So yeah, I'd be heavily involved. As such, you know, I have not been thinking that I would have a role in it because I will be producing it. And that's, you know, it's one thing to do that in a podcast because there's less of a time commitment in the writer's room, but even that, actually, it's kind of been hard to act and write and direct and do all of the things in the podcast. So yeah, I would be a one role person in the TV show context, which would be great to be able to focus just on writing, not the rest. Do I have any dream casting for the potential show? I mean, yeah, I do. But I'm not going to say them. So, you know, we'll just move on from that. Faison, last name. Will any of the 90 patients be in the 2 spinoffs? Potentially. Yes, potentially. I can't say anything more about that. Okay, at Il Fate Sombra, how much of the plot did you have planned at the start? Also, will I cry asking for a friend? At the finale, I mean, or anytime between now and 2020. I mean, anytime between now and 2020, I imagine you will cry at something. I don't know if it'll be because I did it. TBD, the Q&A. Yes, TBD. Yeah, a lot of things are TBD, guys. But to the Twitter question, I had some stuff planned out. So I knew kind of the Mark and Jones stuff at the beginning, and I had a place that I wanted to end up scene-wise. So it wasn't like I had a sort of final line or final scene of the show worked out, although I've had that worked out for a little while. But certainly in the beginning, I didn't have a plan. I actually thought that we'd run for tops 50 episodes. And we'll be doing 56, which is great. But yeah, I mean, I sort of thought like, oh, I'm sure that we'll tap out somewhere in the 20s. Like there's no way that we're going to do more than 50 episodes of this show. And we did, we are. But yeah, I had sort of a place where I wanted certain characters to land at the end of the series from the beginning. And that, you know, how I've gotten there, I think has been the process of discovery, because I like to keep things loose. So I've had a general conclusion, but not specifics planned out since the beginning. And that's kind of a non-answer, but it was sort of a non-ending when I started. Possible Agent Green redemption. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Agent Green is in these back 8 episodes, so you'll be hearing from him. And that's all that I'll say about that. Harpawson, kind of a dull nuts and bolts question. Any plans on changing the Patreon model from per episode to per month when season 4 concludes? Yes, that is something that meant to go into the Patreon announcement, and then the Patreon announcement just got too long and too kind of, sentimental that I didn't want to do the nuts and bolts stuff. But yeah, we'll be going to a monthly model after season 4 because we'll be releasing 1 episode every month. So it's just going to be easier that way. And then we'll probably be releasing the spinoffs on a maybe every other week, maybe every week basis. We'll see. In which case, I wouldn't want to have the Patreon being charged 3 or 4 times a month. Gabrielle Urbina claims he and Misha didn't plan to end all of your shows at the same time. Break our hearts. Can you confirm? Yes. No, this was genuinely just a mistake. We all sort of, I think, independently made those decisions. And then we're talking sometime this fall, because I've known that this is the last season of the Bright Sessions since the end of last season. For at least a year, I've known that this has been the last season. And Megan, I will get to your questions, maybe. But yeah, we sort of were talking sometime last fall, and we're like, oh no, we're all ending our shows in sort of a 6-month span. But I don't know, it's also kind of nice for us because we all sort of came up together and became friends and worked on each other's shows. And so to kind of, round things out at the same time is kind of nice. It's got a nice symmetry to it. So sorry to break all of your hearts, but for us, it's a nice thing. Any word on TV show stuff? Still in development. You will know as soon as I know anything, but yeah, it's a long process. But I'm having a lot of fun doing it. So we shall see. And I'm also very busy doing other things. Will we get a book about Sam and Chloe? I love their friendship in the show. Probably not. I mean, these 3 books are gonna take me through 2020 in terms of my writing of it. And I imagine by the time we're done with the second spinoff in 2020, I will have been doing Bright Sessions for about 6 years. And I'll probably want to move on to other things. So I do love Sam and Chloe and really love their friendship. But to be totally honest, Sam's really based on me. Sam and Chloe's friendship is really based on the friendship that Anna and I have. And so I think because I live that, it's maybe not as interesting to me to explore as a writer. But please, write all the fanfic. All right, back to Twitter questions, because I have a lot. And how much detail do you plan things out before starting a novel? Well, okay, so the first novel, those of you who've been following me on Tumblr for a while will have been familiar with this Caleb Adam novel that's coming out next year for a while, because I've actually been working on it since early 2015. Because as I was writing the first season, I started to think about Adam's side of the story, and I wanted to also kind of figure out exactly what the empath ability felt like in Caleb's body, and so it was easier to work that out in prose. So I wrote about 20 pages of the novel kind of before doing the first season, and then when I realized that Adam was going to become a character, I actually sent those first couple pages to Briggan to sort of be like, here's the other side of the thing that I'm going for and what's happening. So with that book specifically, it's always been in the back of my mind as I've been doing the show. And so that's sort of been planned out for a while and sort of been in process for a while. The other 2, I have, outlines, but I'm very much focused on this first book at the moment because I need to finish it and turn it in. But yeah, I've got sort of, the arc of what I want to happen and kind of what I want to dig into character-wise and all that kind of stuff. So they're not as planned out as the Caleb Adam novel was, just by the nature of it tracking a lot of the podcast stuff. So about probably as plotted out as any of the seasons are when I first get going. Okay, at Arbisa89, first, thank you for all your work. Well, thank you. There'll be audiobooks read by the cast. It would be amazing to Rose, Damien, Caleb, and Adam read the books aloud. I don't know. I mean, that would be really cool. And it would be awesome to have audiobooks. That is one of those later decisions because, as I said, I'm just trying to make the book good right now. But yes, that would be very cool. And you guys know how much I love working with all of those people. So we'll definitely be keeping that in the back of my mind. Let's see, at Chris Crackle. Favorite part about making the Bright sessions? One thing you learned while making it. I think my favorite part is working with my actors. Not only are they all very good friends and lovely people, but they just surprise me all the time. And they've so much made the show what it is. Even though I've been the sole writer, so much of the story and who these characters are is influenced by the way that my actors perform them. And it's like, you know, the show never would have happened at all. And it certainly wouldn't be what it was if it weren't for Julia, who plays Dr. Bright, and kind of just the layers and the nuance and the depth that she brought to Dr. Bright from the very beginning. So I really love working with actors. I think the thing that I learned sort of related to that is that writing, directing, and acting in an episode of something is a bad idea. Directing is one of those things that I like doing to an extent because I really like working with my actors, but it is usually like the third tier priority when I'm doing things. And so I feel like learning that I don't have to do everything and that I can't do everything. I mean, certainly the show wouldn't be what it was if Misha hadn't come on in episode 17, because they've allowed me to expand my sandbox of my writing. So yeah, needing other people to help make something, even though the intention in this podcast was to make something entirely by myself, and which is totally possible because I did it for 17 episodes other than having other actors. But yeah, I think learning that things only get better when you collaborate is an important lesson that I've taken away. Okay, back into the chat here. Trinity writes, Fix, do you plan on going a book tour when the novels come out? Gosh, I sure hope so. That would be great. Yeah, I mean, most sort of book and TV stuff, other than the fact that there are books and the TV show's in development, I don't actually have many more details beyond that. I would really like to go on a book tour because that sounds like so much fun. But I have no idea. That will be a 2019 thing, I think, probably. Or 2020 thing. I have no idea. Hi, this might be more than you want to reveal at this point, but can you say anything about the style of the book, i.e. will they be in third or first person? I don't really know what I'm allowed to say about this. They will be very close kind of character study type things. So I haven't quite settled on a style for the second two books, but certainly even if they are in third person, they will be very much kind of in the perspective of that character, if that is helpful. The 3 Bright Sessions books be a series. Oh, message retracted. Never mind. Back to Twitter. I would love to come to Canada and the Santa Monica Public Library and Portland. I love Powell's. I once spent 4 hours and $100 in Powell's. I shouldn't be allowed to go to bookstores alone. It's not a good idea. All right, back to Twitter. Let's see. At Laura Aki. Do you ever go back and listen to old episodes of TBS like a lot of fans do? Also, are we ever going to see a conversation between Caleb and Damien post beating each other up? Ooh, that second question is good. I'm not going to answer it because spoilers, but yeah, I'm not going to answer that. But do I ever go back and listen to old episodes of TBS? Honestly, no, because by the time that they're released, I've listened to them. I mean, I've been with that episode for like months because, I write it and then I sit in all the recordings. I'm often the one running recordings if it's just 2 people because we don't, Misha will come and do the recording for more than 2 people or if we're doing something special. And then I edit all the dialogue and then I listen to Misha's edit and give them notes and then, listen to the final thing and then do the credits. So by the time that we've released the episode, I've listened to it like dozens of times. And so I rarely go back. I will really only go back if I need to know a particular amount of information or a piece of information, I should say. And usually I actually will just go back and just go to the transcripts on our website and just search for what I need to search for and do it that way so I don't have to listen. Because particularly when there are episodes that involve my own voice, I get very, very sick of it. Will the books be part of a series or standalones? They'll be standalones, but we'll have a degree of intersection, if that makes sense. Oh, hi, Gabrielle. I was talking about you earlier, about how we're all breaking people's hearts by ending all of our shows at the same time. And it's true, spending only $100 at Powell's is like a feat. I was pretty proud of myself. Sarah Smith, any advice for creatives aspiring to the success you've had? Just tell the story that you want to tell. I say that a lot, but I think it bears repeating always because I coordinated heartbreak, exactly. Because I think sometimes people want to get into something. I think, getting into a medium or getting into an artistic endeavor in the attempt to become successful because you want to sort of achieve a degree of success and you make something that you think people are going to like, that doesn't really work. So I think focusing on the story that you want to tell and then finding the best way to tell that. And then, surrounding yourself with good people who are going to encourage you and going to kind of help you. All right, let's go to Twitter again. Oh, thank you at the Sky Prism for saying that I'm an inspiration to budding writers. That's really, really nice. At Sarah with the Jean, how do I send you something to be autographed? Actually, you can do this. Here, I will type the address into the chat. Nobody's ever sent me anything to be autographed before, but we have a PO box that you can send things to, and I could probably send it back to you. So it's on our website, and I also just put it in the chat. So if you genuinely want to do that, you can. Let's see, into the Twitter again. In the production of the special additional sessions, who will be playing the parts? I can't tell you that yet, but I can tell you that, there's going to be a lot of familiar characters because it still very much is about, about these people. So even if there's new characters and kind of different combinations of characters, there's going to be a lot of familiar voices. Okay, I think I've gotten some new things. Okay, at Faizan, will there be a musical episode? I can't tell you that. I can tell you that we've got 2 more years of podcast episodes that we're releasing. One of those might be a musical episode, but it is something that would cost a lot of money and would involve a lot of extra skill sets in terms of, writing and producing music. But you guys know how I feel about musicals, so it's definitely a dream. So yeah, stay tuned. We've got, at least 2 more years of stuff. So hopefully. Are there any particular challenges you found writing for a book as opposed to a podcast? Yeah, it's really hard. Just writing a book is just really, really hard. I think for me, it was that I had for so long been relying so heavily on dialogue, and sort of thinking about the rest of the stuff was hard. Sort of thinking in a prose way was a hard transition just from writing just dialogue. But then also it's like you can do so much more in a lot of ways in a book structure. So that was really fun. At Nerks, when I'm worried you're live streaming instead of writing, should you be writing now? Signed, Anonymous. Well, you're not really anonymous because, that's you on Twitter. Yeah, no, I should be writing. Absolutely, I should be writing. I got some writing done last night, and I'm spending all of tomorrow and Saturday. Well, I'm spending all of tomorrow editing an episode, and then all of Saturday writing. So I'm actually doing okay. I've got stuff written. I've got most of the season written so far. So we should be okay. Okay. Any tips for a complete newbie on writing a script for audio drama style project? Please help if you can. This is hard because Gabrielle would have some thoughts about this too if he wants to chime in the chat. It totally depends on the story that you're telling. I think it's always good to err on the side of smaller casts, because I think that particularly when you're introducing new characters and introducing a story, if you have too many voices, it can get a little complicated. So I think kind of but I mean, this has just been my experience of starting small and kind of expanding outwards. And that's what Gabrielle did with Wolf as well. And what Ars Paradoxica did to an extent. They actually started with many more characters than we did. And for how they've managed to do that, you'd have to ask Misha and Daniel and the rest of their amazing writing team. But yeah, definitely getting distinct voices helps too. But I think thinking about speech patterns is something that I found super helpful. So kind of from the drop, thinking about how each character speaks in a very specific way. So about the fact that, you know, Caleb says like, and he swears a lot, and he is always, his sort of speech is based on the fact that he's always trying to communicate this very intangible thing. And so what does that do to somebody's speech patterns? Whereas Sam is very anxious, obviously, and she also doesn't, particularly at the beginning, hasn't talked to a lot of people. So she rushes things out a lot. She starts sentences a lot without kind of, you know, actually finishing them. So she'll say like, oh, I just, you know, kind of these aborted sentence starts. And there are lots of ellipses in Sam's dialogue because she is uncertain and she sort of will be talking and then she'll pause because she gets freaked out. So kind of thinking about those specific things and this like little verbal tics, almost like the fact that Dr. Bright says wonderful as a response to things is sort of, you know, and then having that be something that Agent Green says and something that she clearly picked up from him, or the fact that both Wadsworth and Adam say potato, potato. Stuff like that, of sort of like getting very, very specific with speech patterns is something that I've personally found helpful. I don't know if that would be a good use of time for everybody and for every format of show, but I don't know. I found it fun. I'm glad that Arpossum that you find it interesting, because I think it's interesting too. For context, as I was writing the first season, I was also a transcriptionist. So I was listening to a lot of audio of like focus groups and stuff and sort of zeroing in on people's speech patterns, which was weirdly helpful. So, you know, if you are looking to make an extra buck, you know, BabbleType is a transcriptionist company. I worked for them for a little while. No, thanks, Gabrielle. That's not true. You always have things to add, because Gabrielle is much more structured in his scripts and thinks things through a lot more than I do, I think. But yeah, thank you for saying that. I've thought of it thoroughly. Yeah, the potato potato and the wonderful thing, those were two intentional verbal quirks. And then I have seeing people on like Twitter and Tumblr sort of being like, oh my gosh, like those parallels, that's so smart. And I wish I could like claim responsibility for all of those things, but sometimes those things just happen. And that's what's called, as the Wolf 359 team calls it, retroactive cleverness, where you did something clever and you can just sort of claim it retroactively because you didn't actually intend to be clever. But some of the verbal quirks were intentional, so I can take credit for that. Dark Deluxeful, when you started, did you ever think it was going to get this big? Did you think about spin-off books as you're writing a podcast? Did you work on more than just a podcast? No, I am the most baffled and just delightfully overwhelmed that this is my life now and that this has sort of gotten as big as it's gotten. I think the sort of most amazing thing in the past 2 days, and don't take this as me wanting to make people cry, but the fact that I got some messages and saw some tweets, you know, we got tweeted at, that people were crying at the news of the show ending. And it just, I don't know, it doesn't always quite process that people care about the show as much as we do. Like, I know intellectually that you do, because you have said so many wonderful things to us and then done so much wonderful fan art and just like shared your stories. And I'm so grateful for all of that. And I love all of that. But I don't know, just the idea that people would be like sad about the thing ending was really, I don't know, it's always incredibly, incredibly humbling. And the fact that people were maybe crying over that when like, so Monday night, Brian came over to do some editing stuff with me. And I was working on the announcement and I was like, can I read this out loud to you? And kind of, you know, gauge if you think that what I'm saying is good and it's clear and all this kind of stuff. And so I started reading out the thing that I typed up to record. And like, I get maybe 4 sentences in before I start crying. And it was just really, and then he starts crying. We just sort of had a little cry over it. And then to see people kind of reacting the same way that don't know me personally and that haven't worked on the show and, people I've never met before is really, really nice. So it was a very long-winded thing of sentimentality, but I never thought it would get this big. In terms of the books, I mean, I've wanted to be an author since I was 10. I love reading, and I've been, writing little novels since I was a kid and never finished any of them. And then I did start writing the Caleb Adam novel, the first one, sort of concurrently with the podcast. But then it was just an exercise for myself, so I kind of put it aside and only picked it up last year again. So I certainly never thought that it would be published someday. So that's pretty wild. R. Pawson, I did notice Mark and Damien both use the beautiful creature line. That is a great example of something I did not do intentionally. I'm trying to remember when I remember when Mark, they do both use it. Yeah. Yeah, that's no, I can't claim intentional cleverness for that. I do think that there are certain characters that I try to, at a certain point, match their speech patterns. Oh man, this is going to be, you guys are really going to be hit over the head with this a little bit in episode 49, because there's actually kind of a conversation about this. So it's clear how much I think about it. But yeah, the beautiful creature line, I didn't even think about that. Score Holmes has been super helpful. I'm doing my 12-year media project in audio drama about superpower teens, so thank you for inspiring me. That's awesome. Yes, I think you sent me an email or a DM on somewhere, and I think I responded. If I didn't, let me know. But I do remember you mentioning that. So if I didn't respond, let me know, but I'm glad that this has been helpful. Sophie VA, how did you first come up with the idea for the show? I wanted to make something myself. I have anxiety and was thinking about a girl who travels and goes away from her place when she has panic attacks, and thought about making a podcast about that, and then realized I didn't want to hear myself talk that much. And so I wanted to give her somebody to have a conversation with. And that's it. Just kind of, once I figured out therapists, it just sort of spiraled out from there. Sorry, my phone is going off. Yeah, but basically just the desire to write something, and then sort of this character of Sam in my head just rolling around in there for a little while before being like, oh, well, what if she had a therapist? Like, what if that therapist had a bunch of weird patients? What would that be like? Yeah, that was it. Brian, so this future Caleb Damien road trip spinoff, explain. I don't have to explain anything. That was your idea. That is not what the Caleb spinoff is, for those of you wondering, in 2020. It is not a Caleb Damien road trip. Brigham can write that fic for himself and for you all. I am not going to write that. They'd kill each other. That would just be it'd be a nightmare. Well, no, I mean, Damien wouldn't stand a chance. I definitely read this transcript for the Outsing Cinema. If I watched it, I was gonna cry. Oh, make you should glow. Brigham comes in swinging hard. Yes, yeah, no, Brigham is the worst. I hate him so much. Yes, Megan, you and Brigham write that fic, okay? You guys go off and write that fic, or come over for wine and we can talk about it, but I'm not writing that in the official canon of the Bright Sessions. I'm sorry. Did it surprise you the amount of hate you received because there are gay characters? I saw a tweet from one of them. Yeah, so I do tweet out these things from time to time because it's like I just, want to confront the fact that there are people who are still assholes. But we don't get all that much hate for having the number of gay characters. It's, a review or an email or something every couple of months. It's nothing crazy. And I mean, no, it didn't surprise me, honestly, because I'm a queer person living in America. I've encountered plenty of homophobia in my life. I have lots of queer family members and friends, and it's like homophobia is alive and real. I think what surprised me was the quota thing, because I mean, we will very, very occasionally get the oh, this is terrible because there's a gay character. Like, this would be fine if it didn't have a male-male romance and sort of the main, character. But but most of what we get is, I was fine with Caleb and Adam, and then there were too many queer people. It's just unrealistic, and it's too much, and it's too preachy, and that always surprised me because I'm like, that there's like more than one queer person in the world, right? And they tend to find each other because that's just how social groups work. So that sort of always surprised me because it seems like such an arbitrary issue to take, and they're always like 3 or 4 star reviews. So it's like they like it to a point, but the moment there's like more than 2 queer characters, it's too much. It's a bridge too far. And that always surprised me because it's just so dumb. And it seems like so wishy-washy. It's like either be a giant homophobe or don't be. But like this weird thing of like, oh, well, I can accept an LGBT person as long as there's one. It just so silly. Great, we're talking about fic in the chat. I love it. I keep wanting to write, but end up getting discouraged. Any tips to just doing it? I think you have to find a story that you really, really love. Like, I think it's the same, I'd say like a lot of creative impulses are like, I have to do this thing. Like there's something in my body that needs to do this. And so I think that it becomes a lot easier to write when you can't stop thinking about those characters and you just, really want to dig into them and all that kind of stuff, with that plot or whatever it is. And I also think it can be good to sort of just force yourself to write a little bit every day. I don't think you have to write every day to be a writer. I certainly don't write every day, but I think that sometimes actually just getting into that habit is nice. And even if it's just like writing a couple lines every single day and sort of seeing where that takes you. But I think definitely finding the story or the character that you're super passionate about, and then doing whatever you need to do to make the writing exciting and to sort of get into it. I mean, there's a reason that there's 35 Bright Sessions playlists, because that to me gets me kind of in the mood to write. Because sometimes, I'll be thinking about a character, I'll be thinking about a scene, but it'll sort of be like daydreaming. It won't actually be sitting, won't sort of be an actual conversation yet or an actual structure of an episode or what have you. And then so I'll kind of go and make a playlist, or I'll sort of like turn on my voice memo and kind of talk through things out loud. And sometimes I can get kind of things kickstarted in your brain to the point that you actually do want to write. So sometimes writing is like 80% doing other things, and then the 20% of actually sitting down and writing. So finding those other things that you want to do that will kickstart that creative impulse in you. Can you confirm my queer Sam headcanon or not? I will say that, Sam is based heavily on me, and I'm a bisexual woman. Sam has not had a lot of dating opportunity in her life. And attraction, I would say that she, I mean, I don't know that I've actually, Sam's one of those characters that I have not necessarily strictly defined her sexuality, because it's not really come up in the show, and it's something that she's still, figuring out and all that kind of stuff, because I don't think it's a priority for her. And I think she sort of just like fell in love with who Mark is, and that was that. And that was sort of the first time that she felt that kind of impulse. And that could very likely happen with somebody else. But now she's sort of like very focused on Mark, that I don't think she's looking around at the world and sort of thinking about who she's attracted to, because I think she's just attracted to Mark. I think there's a very good argument to be had for Sam being demisexual. And she could be, heteroromantic, homoromantic, biromantic, whatever. Well, no, she's definitely not homoromantic, because she is definitely romantically attracted to Mark as well. But, I think that there's a lot of different arguments to be made. I know it's not really an answer, but I mean, yeah. I think probably, if the right person came along, I don't think she'd necessarily be fussed all that much about gender, but I think that she's pretty sold on Mark at the moment. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in the next 8 episodes, so who knows? When you started, did the characters take on lives of their own and change plans you may have? Yeah, completely. I mean, getting actors, like I've said, changes everything so much. And I mean, like I've mentioned this before, Charlie Ian, who plays Damien, has changed so much, because he sort of proposed the idea of Damien being involved in Mark's rescue. And then I was like, yeah, that's an interesting concept. I like that. And then putting Charlie and Andrew together as Mark and Damien, I was like, oh, this is a very interesting dynamic that I would like to explore more. So that has definitely changed a lot of things. I think Ian as Agent Green has changed a lot of things. I think Alex as Wadsworth has changed a lot of things. Because you just, like, I think getting somebody to read aloud the lines that you've written and sort of embody this character that you've had in your head, that person all of a sudden becomes human in a way that they weren't before necessarily. And then there's just so much to explore and sort of all the facets of that person's humanity, which is why everybody in the podcast is so messy and flawed, because all humans are. I mean, my actors are all perfect, lovely angels. But they do bring so much, layered, great, stuff you can chew on to their characters. And so that's certainly changed the trajectory of the show in ways that, in infinite ways. It's impossible to sort of quantify the ways in which the characters have shifted and as a result have shifted the course of the show. Please don't have Sam and Mark break up. I know, that would be very sad. So I hope it doesn't happen. Trinity writes, Fix, have you ever read any TBS fanfic? I have not. And I won't. And I've asked my actors to not read any either. And this is not because we don't love the concept and world of fanfic. I myself read plenty of fanfic. I've read some other podcast fanfic. And I have written fanfic. Only recently, though. I only recently wrote my first fanfic, which was a really fun exercise. But because we're still making the show, and because I will personally be making stuff with these characters for at least the next couple of years, I don't want anything in a fic to influence me or to sort of, I don't want to accidentally steal an idea from a listener or something like that. So no, we don't read any Bright Sessions fanfic. But someday when I am done with this world entirely and done with these characters, I'm going to pour myself a bottle of wine and sit down and read a whole bunch of fic. I can't wait. Hi, the Menosaur. Thank you for saying that. Score Holmes, if I read any, do I have any I'd recommend of fic? Oh, not of TBS fic. That I would ask the other folks in the chat, or just go into the AO3 tag, because I think that there's stuff in there, and AO3 is a wonderful resource. Love that you consider the entire spectrum of sexual romantic attraction. It's not often you hear that about characters in the Arrow A spectrum. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's my own journey has been the continuous process of discovery, and I think that that's true of a lot of people that I know, and just true of a lot of people in general. And it's just so interesting too, because then there's so many different possibilities of how people can relate to each other. And, I never want any of my characters to just be their sexuality, but it is going to influence how, if they're able to be attracted to a certain person, even if they're not, like, you need to then figure out, are they attracted to that person or are they not? I think you just have to know how your characters relate to each other. And part of that is sort of who they can be attracted to and who they can be romantically inclined towards and all that kind of stuff. I think it's super interesting. Thanks, Kevin. I am the best at being the worst. Thank you. For which fandom you wrote a fanfic for? Megan has read this fanfic. Multiple fanfics. So you guys, if you follow me on Twitter, may have seen some tweets that I have about Nashville. I have some feelings about Nashville. So I've written some Nashville fanfic, which I can safely say is the last fanfic I ever expected to write. But I've had a great time with it. No, it's never going to be posted on AO3 because I've tweeted now, because I've said it here, there's no fanfic in this ship that if I post it, everyone will know it's mine. I know that's just for me and for Megan, who doesn't even watch Nashville, but we'll read it because she's a good friend. Will the books be before or after the current TBS series? Yes. The answer to that is yes. Both of those things. Was Chloe distracted by someone walking by when we heard the heels in episode 45? Yes, she was distracted. She was listening to that person's thoughts and just got kind of momentarily distracted. No, that is not an important plot point. Have you ever considered what you will do when you leave the TBS universe entirely? Take a vacation, I think. A weekend would be cool. Yeah, but yes, I have 3 other 3 or 4 other podcasts that I'm sort of developing at the moment. Some of them are in further stages of development than others. But yes, I have lots of ideas for a couple of other podcasts, and I would love to do TV someday. I mean, obviously, if the TBS show goes, then that would end up being I'd be in the universe a little bit longer, which would be wonderful. And I do really enjoy writing books. So yeah, I've got some ideas, and hopefully some of those ideas will be implemented in the next couple of years. It's partly why we're going to a slightly different structure, is because I've got some other podcast ideas that I'm really excited about with some really awesome people. And so I would like to kind of pursue those as well. Yeah, 3 to 4 simmering. That's a perfect way to put it, Art Boston. Yeah. We'll find a weekend vacation for you. You guys are. I mean, Patreon supporters. Justin's a Patreon supporter. It's like someday I will be able to pay myself for running the brain sessions. I'll be able to take a vacation. It'll be great. Lizette, so it's confirmed that Sam's demisexual. I don't necessarily love confirming stuff outside of canon. I have always thought of her as being open to potentially, to sort of, yeah. So I mean, how can I phrase this? I've always thought of her as somebody who is, because of kind of her agoraphobia and her anxiety, is pretty closed off to people, and so would only really think of attraction would, I think, only really occur to her after she'd sort of made that strong connection. That doesn't mean that she's going to feel attraction to everybody she makes a strong connection with, but I do think that that's a super important thing. But I think of her that way, but I am aware that unless you confirm it in canon, it kind of doesn't mean all that much. So I cannot claim that confirmation until I actually make it a part of the show, which I'm not entirely sure it will be. Okay, you've mentioned your social anxiety. As I suffer myself, how did you push past it to make a podcast and put it out in the world? Yeah, in the Women's March Twitter post, yeah, I was having a bad brain day on that day and didn't go. And I mean, I think just there are days that are good and days that are bad. And I think that, I just, in a lot of ways, me processing my own anxiety through the podcast was helpful. And I certainly was not as comfortable talking about my own struggles with anxiety when I first released the podcast. But then having people listen to it and kind of respond and say, yeah, I also experienced that. And you're not alone, made me more comfortable with it. And then I actually started therapy, which I highly recommend, because I thought that I should start practicing what I'm preaching. And my therapist is very adamant in me being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so I've just sort of learned to be at peace with being uncomfortable a lot of the time. And then sort of figuring out the line of when I get too uncomfortable and I sort of have to give myself some space or kind of remove myself from a social situation or what have you. But yeah, I think sometimes just ripping off the Band-Aid and just doing it. And I think particularly with a podcast, it was me and 3 people making this thing, 3 people that I know and trust, 3 good friends. And I just released it into the ether. It's like there were no stakes because maybe no one would hear it and nobody would, it wouldn't matter because nobody had heard it. Whereas now actually sometimes digging into deeper things that maybe are influenced from my own emotions in the podcast is scarier because I know people are listening. So I'm still figuring it out. I'm really sorry that you suffer from social anxiety as well. It sucks. I think, surrounding myself with people who know that I have social anxiety and who people I can sort of be like, I don't want to go to that thing that I said I would go to because I am going to have a panic attack if I talk to other people that I don't know right now. And then I think just, I finding, so actually on this channel that I'm currently live streaming on, I have a video called The Introvert's Guide to Partying. That's basically about how to go to a party when you have social anxiety. Yeah, I still do all of the stuff that I talk about in that video in terms of like going to the bathroom when I get anxious and just sort of hanging out in there, or finding, always bringing a gift so that I have something to do when I get in, sort of getting a drink right away, even if it's non-alcoholic, just by having something in my hand, standing by the food and talking about the food and eating food. So I have a point of sort of conversation. I think sort of structuring your own party going and social interactions can be helpful sometimes. Okay, I'm I've got to wind this down. I think I've been rambling for 50 minutes. Oh, thank you, Shauna, for saying that I'm pretty. That's really nice. I love these glasses. These are my old glasses that I dug up. They're Warby Parker. Am I going to be doing NaNoWriMo? I mean, probably. I've got another book due next year. I did it this year, and that's how I kind of knocked out the rest of the Caleb book. So yeah, hopefully. Yes, I can give a shout out. Hi, Sam Spack. Is that how you pronounce your name? Sam Spake? Sam Spack. Anyway, hi, Sam. Justin's awesome. You've got a great roommate. So kudos to you for that. Oh, Megan, my ultimate hype man always. I love you. I hope you find the same peace too, Talonal Jones. I think you will. I think therapy really helps finding people you can trust and talk to about this kind of stuff. Even if it's an online community, I think it really, really helps. And just, you know, we all have the things that we deal with. And I promise you, people, when you're having those moments in social situations where like you're internally freaking out, like it's that fork in the garbage disposal sound, like Good Place said, people don't notice. Like, I know you think that they do, but 90% of the time they're not aware because they're having their own fork in the garbage disposal moment. So yeah, just be kind to yourself in those kinds of moments. Cause I think that it's not as dire as we sometimes make it in our heads, you know? So many things. Do you have tips for overcoming panic attacks? Nope. I tend to lie on the floor and put a heavy book on my chest or hug a pillow, and then just ride the wave. Yeah. So if you find a secret to overcoming panic attacks, you let me know because I would love to know. Oh, thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you, everybody who's saying such nice things in the chat. It's really, really nice. Chidi is me, to be honest. I know, Kevin, me too. I already asked her if she's aware there's going to be a book about her life. Okay, honestly, if there was somebody playing me in the movie of my life story, Mandy Moore, obviously, because she looks enough, we look enough alike, I think, in terms of our coloring and our face shape and stuff. And also, she's amazing. She's killing it on This Is Us. So yeah, that would be great. I realize she's older than me, and so that might not work, but Mandy Moore. Okay, I think I'm gonna wind this down because it's now 6. But thank you guys so much. I hope that this answered some questions about the future of the show and eased some concerns. We're definitely not ending, really. I just want these 56 episodes, as I said, to sort of stand on their own, because I'm conscious of the fact that if we went for 50 more episodes, it'd be harder and harder for people to jump in. And this is a story that I really want people to be able to consume. And so, yeah, we're kind of just pivoting slightly, but you're going to be hearing a lot from us in the next couple of years. You're going to be hearing a lot from Julia in the next year because she'll be doing those 9 bonus episodes as Dr. Bright, and which are going to be really amazing. We're going to get some new actors in, some new writers, hopefully, to get some more perspectives. And yeah, I'm really, really excited about what we have coming up. So thank you all so much for listening these past 48 episodes and for wanting to stick with us and wanting to see what's next. It really, really means a lot. And we couldn't do it without you. So seriously, thank you so, so much. And thanks for tuning in. I hope this was informative and fun. And thank you for all the hearts in the chat. This is lovely. Yes, 10 bonus episodes for patrons. And there might be someone who's been in this chat who is writing that 10th episode, which I think some of you are really gonna like. So if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com/thebrightsessions. And you'll be getting that 10th episode, which I have the outline for and which is so good. And I just can't wait. I'm really, really excited. So yes, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go make dinner now. And I love you all very, very much. Thank you for sticking with us. And of course, as always, stay strange.